Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I was about to the show, but this has been a long time coming, and I'm finally glad that we're all back together. We're breaking down full card for UFC 284, and let's just go ahead and bring in the boys, the Horsemen, and Gordo. Device is not connected. Ooh. Liam, Lou, how are you guys doing? Until Gordo gets on here.
Doing well, brother. Good to be back.
Glad to have you here, Lou. We did the show last night.
Been
Obviously,
hours since I've been on the channel. Hours. Glad to break down a second sport with you. I'm a little more excited about this card betting wise now than I was a few hours ago. I will say that. Like, starting to come together for some things I like.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see because I remember we talked about this a couple of days ago, and we both kind of felt like the card was not the best in terms of betting. Not too many spots. Oh, here's the man. Here he is. After some brief technical difficulties.
Yeah, man, I don't know what's happening. I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me on, guys. I'm excited to talk some fights. You know, yesterday I was more of a comedic relief for football. At least I can provide something to this show, right? Maybe a bit of knowledge, maybe a little bit of trash talking for Lou and that Iron Man. But I'm excited to talk to the Horsemen, all good-looking people, and even smarter guys behind the good looks as well.
You and Lou should do a shoey bet on who places higher in the Iron Man.
You know what? I am so bad at shoey bets that I lose them when I don't even make them at this point. So I don't know. I don't know what you want from me shoey wise.
I have 2 fifth places in a row. I don't want to ruin it. Like, I just want to keep the upward trajectory, keep placing in the top 5, take the contest. Long way to go.
Let's shout out the chat. Evan, my guy, thanks for hopping on. And Pascal, give me a hell yeah. Let's do this. Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and start this thing off. First fight of the night, we have Zubaira Tukhugov going up against Elvis Brenner. This fight's going to be at featherweight, to my understanding. Actually, no, this fight's going to be at lightweight. Zubaira's moving up, and he's a heavy favorite here. Close odds, around -500 on some markets. Let's go ahead and kick it off with Lou. Lou, what do you think about this fight?
United just tied it, so that was what the fist pound was for. I'm not betting this one. Zuba's got every advantage here. I mean, Brenner's only path, just looking at his tape, is taking this to the ground and getting a submission. He's not going to have any success wrestling a Russian here. On the feet, it's like night and day. I mean, Zuba's striking's really good, but he kind of, the guy has no urgency. So if you're going to bet him, I guess decision's the path. He really should just blow through him, Elvis, in round 1. But, I know this is a step down for him too, but he hasn't really shown urgency to get finishes. So I'm staying off any kind of props. And by the way, this fight's at 155 because he's lazy. Like, let's just get that out of the way. It's not at 155 because he's making like career moves. He's just too lazy to lose weight. So he's fighting at 155. So the pick is Zuba. No prop, no bet. Like, just can't get to it at this number. Although I don't see a winning path for Elvis at all.
Fair enough. Gordo, what do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, whenever I look at these fights, it's been a common trend that I like to bet violence in the first fight of the night, but it's so hard to do that here with a guy like Tukhugov because, like Lou said, no urgency, and we haven't seen any chin deficiencies from Brenner. He's never been finished. The guy seems to be decently tough. What I will say is skill-wise, it is Tukhugov all day. I don't know if I can get to the money line. I don't see any value in it, but Tughov's going to have the way better of the striking exchange. I think he's the more physically imposing guy as well. And, I don't think Brenner's the guy to attack that 100% takedown defense that Tukhugov has. But it's not a fight I'm looking to get too invested in, really. Maybe a sit back, watch it, throw some DGen money on the Zubaira KO, because that's what I think is a very common trend in this fight, is he's able to find that, because like Luke said, the striking is night and day. So the paths for Brenner are a bit less than I'd like to, but this is one that I don't want to have too much financial involvement in. Zubaira all day, in my opinion.
I tend to agree. Liam.
I mean, the guy who's been in closer proximity to the UFC recently has actually been Brenner. He's been in the Charles Oliveira camp. He went over to Abu Dhabi as part of the fight camp as well with the shootbox team. So Zubaira, he's had the second longest layoff of anybody on the card, coming in at a -540 price tag. It's a lot to ask of anybody. Now he's fighting a UFC debutant. I mean, how low could you make the price? People would come in and slam it if it was lower. So the bookmaker, sometimes they're trying to get two-way action. Sometimes they're trying to get no action at all. And this is the kind of fight where they don't want you to come in and play the favorite. They don't expect that you're going to come in and play the underdog. So I feel like this is a fight that's probably not going to get very much betting volume. I don't know that it's going to move very much from here. As far as I'm concerned, I would be on a dog or pass situation. Zubaira Tukhugov, kind of a split decision type of guy. Even in his wins, oftentimes it's coming down to the fact that like third round, he's just coasting. Talk about the Russian coast. I mean, this guy is the classic Russian coast. After 2 rounds up, he's like, F this, I'm running away. I'm taking this in reverse. And Hakeem Dawood, who's like, stop running, like chasing him down. Like those visuals are terrible with the judges. I think that, there's no bias in favor of the Russians in Australia. There's no bias in favor of the Brazilians. It's probably going to be an even kind of deal. Could go either way, and aggression is often what gets you the win. There's another fight on this card that we'll talk about, but Alonzo Menefield, if you remember the William Knight fight, in the 3rd round, nobody landed anything. There was no strikes landed at all, but one guy threw aggressive strikes and chased somebody across the ring, and that got him the win. It's like the guy who comes forward and swings wins the fight sometimes, and Elvis might not be a technical striker, but will he come forward and swing? I think he will for the whole 15 as long as he's alive. He's a shoot box guy. What the hell else do? They take punches and keep coming forward. Like they either go down or they keep coming forward. So I feel like he's going to try and keep coming forward on Zubaira. Zubaira might knock him out in round 1, but this is him moving up in weight. This is Elvis coming in at his natural weight. I feel like there's some reasons to think it's a dog or pass situation, but I mean, who would be favored? Gun to your head, of course, Zubaira. He's the UFC guy. I just think, why did they bring in Elvis? Probably as a favor to Charles. He's another shoot box guy who's going to bring that same style. So never been finished before. He's had a number of pro fights. I think that's some things to like about the underdog.
Yeah, I mean, Tukhugov is the biggest favorite on the card for a reason, in my opinion. I think Brenner's takedown defense is somewhat questionable, although Tukhugov doesn't really utilize it in every fight. There's fights where he goes out there and he shoots 6 takedowns, he lands 6 takedowns, and there's fights where he just goes for none. He does have some sneaky power in the hands, so I'm kind of curious to see how the power metrics look at 155 for him. This is a fight where obviously I'm not really interested betting-wise. I'm more interested if I were to get involved on maybe like a Zubaira inside the distance look, or as Lou mentioned, like a KO look, because Gordo mentioned it would be like a KO look more than anything. But when you look at the strength of schedule here, Tukhugov has been fighting guys like Ricardo Ramos, Daudo, Kevin Aguilar, Leron Murphy, and Moicano in his last 5. And impressively, he went 2-2-1. Brenner's 1-3 in decisions, which plays into the Tukhugov narrative of, maybe he just wins a decision here. I think Tukhugov can win this fight but just by laying and praying, honestly, if he wants to. If he wants to make it a boring fight, just take the guy down and lay on him, maybe land some ground and pound just so the ref doesn't stand him up. And Tukhugov has landed some knockdowns in the UFC level, so that kind of favors that inside the distance or that KO look. I wouldn't be surprised, but in terms of at the moment, I don't think I'm going to be betting on this fight personally. Boys, any thoughts? Other than that, we can move on to the next fight. And in the next one, we have Blake Bilder going against Shane Young. This fight's going to be at featherweight. Blake Bilder's coming in 7-0-1 against Shane Young, 13-6. Let's go ahead and start with Gordo. Gordo, what do you think about this fight?
Well, Blake Bilder went on as an underdog, Dana White Contender Series, did what everybody should do against Canadian prospects and won because we suck, apparently, right? That's what we got. So, no, he went out there. He found the chaos. He thrives in it. And he's a guy who is just a all gas, no breaks type of fighter. And that's what I like to see, especially on DraftKings, because he has so many defensive liabilities. There's no saying that he is some great defensive fighter. He leaves a lot of openings. But what he does possess is a decent offensive skill set, in my opinion. Shane Young is a guy who I think he doesn't thrive at anything. I think he's very, very well-rounded, but nothing that he does really blows me away. I think he's got good pressure, good volume, good technical ability on the feet. He's got a decent ability mixed up on the ground, but I think that nothing he does is really superb. And to me, it's a battle of a guy who's going to be consistently pushing forward with a lot of holes in his defensive abilities versus a guy in Shane Young who's probably going to be there for a lot of the time, throwing with as much volume. I think it's a very, very fun fight. I bet the under a while ago, and this is one of 2 fights where I got some CLV. We all know how that goes for me. I'm probably cursed, so please stay away from this. And I got it at plus 135 for the under 2.5. I think this is a good spot to find that plus money because Biller's going to come forward. He's looking for that finish at all times. That's what he wants to do. He's not there to win any decisions. He's there to get finishes, and in doing so, he could tire himself out, but he could also catch Shane Young the same way that Shane Young was caught by Ludovic Klein with that head kick, right? I think that Bilder has more finishing power in this spot. I think he has more ability to finish this fight at all times. And although he is going to go out there balls to the wall, in doing so, it could gas himself out as well. Shane Young could always capitalize. Like I said, he's just mediocre at everything. So if you're mediocre at capitalizing on things, there you go. It is a fun fight, though. Lots of DraftKings ownership on Bilder because of his finish potential. But, another fun fight, right? I like betting violence, and this is one I think you could take advantage of that plus money tag.
I like it. Liam, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, surprisingly enough, I actually bet half a unit on Alex Morgan inside the distance in that fight against Bilder because I wasn't really impressed with Bilder on tape, except for the fact that he fights through adversity. He fought a pretty tough level of competition regionally, but he was getting blasted in every fight. Like his striking defense is nil. And so Shane Young, I feel like he's gotten a little bit of a raw deal in the UFC. Granted, there's like that spurt where they gave him 2 very winnable fights and then he looked good for a while. So people were on board and then he kind of fell off the train again, right? Like lost to 2 guys that might lose their UFC job here. Ludovic Klein already did in terms of, guys on the chopping block. Omar Morales is certainly 1 or 2 losses away from not fighting in the UFC anymore, especially at his age, especially given 2 losses in a row. So those are the things that are not good for Shane Young, but those were also guys that were primarily strikers that wanted to go out there and strike with him, that wanted to land big, impactful shots. Ludovic Klein, all he ever did on the regional scene was knock people out with that left high kick. I mean, it's just, he does one thing really good, did it to Shane Young. Other people used it as an example, so they didn't get made an example of, right? Then you look at Omar Morales, he's like a career kickboxer that like started MMA late. So in kickboxing, which is what they basically did, they purely kickboxed, he was better. And he just beat him to the punch. He's a little bit more clean. And Shane Young was coming off a knockout loss, so he was a little bit more tepid and a little bit more hesitant in his approach. I think in this kind of fight, he took the requisite amount of time off, but it's the biggest layoff on the card. It's a huge layoff. So those kind of things make me like Gordo's look here on the fight going under or the fight not going the distance. I think both these guys have a clear path to finish. I think Shane Young can knock this guy out. I think Alex Morgan could have knocked this guy out if things had gone differently. I think that Bilder can win by knockout. He does swing heavies. I don't think it's very technical striking. I think that more likely he would have to win this fight by submission, which I think he could do. I think he's probably the better grappler by a decent bit, and I think he could expose that. But that's one part of Shane Young's game that hasn't really been audited recently. It was a little bit by Volkanovski, but interesting fight on paper. I think that it's closely lined for a reason. Both guys have vulnerabilities.
Definitely. Lou, what do you think?
Well, Liam stole a little bit of my thunder, but I'm taking a poke at this Bilder round 3 submission prop. I have some hesitancy with Shane Young. I agree that he's going to be the better striker, and I agree that Bilder's striking defense is atrocious. The layoff concerns me greatly, and Bilder, I understand the looks on the under, but Bilder to this point, yeah, he's hittable, but the dude just keeps plodding forward. Like he's able to get hit and be like, and shake it off. His recoverability is pretty good. I know he's getting beaten up by lesser talents, but again, he just seems to be like, he's fine eating a couple of shots to get inside. I think the takedowns are going to be there. And I think Shane Young's best path here is going to be early because again, 2-year layoff against a guy who's fought 3 times since. I think they fought like the same day. So last time that Shane Young fought, or like within a day or two. Bilder's fought 3 more times. The Alex Morgan win, it's a great win. I mean, he just blew him out. Like I was shocked too. I was with you, Liam. I think I was on the Alex Morgan side for that. So it's pretty surprised how it went. But Bilder's exciting. He's an action fighter, and Shane Young, there could be some tentative nature here. Again, first fight in over 2 years. So give me the more active guy that I think is going to force more a frenetic pace. And I like him as the fight goes on to have big cardio advantage as we go on. So Blake Builder for me in the distance, and maybe a little poke on the round 3 sub.
Also, it looks
plus 1600, by the way.
ooh, juicy. That is juicy. All solid takes there. The way I broke this fight down, obviously Builder's making his debut at 30 years old. In my opinion, I think Shane Young has fought the better competition. He's fought Volk, he's fought Ludovic Klein, so I would have to give him the nod there. And I think this is more of like a grappler versus striker matchup, not the most not diverse in a sense where there's strictly a grappler, strictly a striker, but in a sense. I think Young will have the advantage on the feet. He brings the pressure, and his cardio does tend to hold up. I like Builder's takedowns. His entries are a little sloppy at times when he gasses out a little, but I gotta lean towards Shane Young here. I do like the under in this fight. I haven't gone to the window yet, but for me, the pick is Shane Young. A likely pass on the money line side. I think both guys will hunt the finish, but are quite durable themselves. So the lean for me is the under and Shane Young. On to the next one. We have the people's main event. We have, as Wheezy and Brady would say, the very handsome Loma Lookboonmee versus Elise Reed. Liam, take it there.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people that are bullish on Elise Reed this week, and think that like the line is too wide on Loma. I do think that Loma's going to win the fight, like pretty clearly. Just the things that make it interesting. They both like to kick. They both like to keep it at that outside range at times. But I think that if somebody pushed the grappling in this fight, it would probably be Loma, and I think she would be able to get on top and go to work if she wanted to. I think Elise Reed is very questionable on the ground. Moreover, I think that on the feet, the person that's more technical with their striking by a hair is Loma. And I think that she's going to be a little bit more willing to clinch up, grab a hold of her, bully her against the fence, things like that, that maybe we wouldn't see as much from Elise Reed. So I think that it's not going to be an easy fight by any means, but I do see Loma as the clear A side in this fight. She's also fighting out of Bangtao Muay Thai, owned by the champion, who's headlining the card. It's like in Perth, the gym. Yeah, like you just start putting 2 and 2 together. You're like, oh, that's why she's on the card. She's like a local favorite, and Elise Reed is just a girl from America that they brought in. That's like 2 and 2 in the UFC, kind of struggling to hold on. And here's the other thing, right? My Narrative Nation cap, right? I got my Narrative Nation cap on. When you look at this fight, you say to yourself, what is the problem with selling Loma Lookboonmee to the public? She's done very well. She's like 4 and 2. Only losses are to Lupi Godinez and Angela Hill. Like those are pretty good fighters. And Lupi just presents a unique style challenge. She's a great wrestler. So she took her down a bunch, which I don't expect from Elise Reed. So in this fight, when I look at it, I say to myself, why did they give her Elise Reed? Why did they put this fight, in like a home game type of situation for her? They're not going to Thailand anytime soon. So this is as close as you'll get to a home game for her. It's like, why did they do this? Because Elise Reed has 2 losses inside the distance, and Loma's never finished anybody. So they're like, please, Loma, by any means necessary, can you go out and finish this girl? I think she's going to. So that's my pick, Loma inside the distance. But I will preface that by saying I've made many women's inside the distance donations in my life, and this could be one of them. I haven't bet it yet, but that's something I thought about in this fight. It's like, why did they put this together? Loma's got 4 wins, 4 by decision. Maybe it's so she can get a finish.
I'm kind of on the side there. Let's see, Lou. What are your thoughts about this fight?
I don't know if Liam's reading my notes or something, but
I'm
right
wait,
there.
is he on mine?
I'm right there. I'm right there with him.
Turn around.
I think she gets the KO here too. And you look at Elise Reed. It's crazy that Elise Reed, this is gonna be her 5th fight. I forgive the Eubanks loss. It was short notice, it was up a weight class. That was just a complete like mauling. Corey McKenna has the worst fight IQ ever. And I don't even think she won last fight by getting a late takedown, which I didn't really expect from Elise Reed. The Sam Hughes fight's the one that is interesting to me because she made Sam Hughes look like fucking Khabib. Like just the way she got taken down. Now, you look at Loma's last 3 fights, she has 9 takedowns. She had 1 against Lupi in a fight where she's clearly not trying to grapple in that. Like that she wants to get as far away from her as possible in the grappling realm. But 4 each against against Denise Gomez, which, by the way, was like one of those fights I had no money on, and it was just way more fun than it had any right to be as just a fan. Like, that was just crazy exchanges on the ground. And Loma almost got her out of there, too. So I like what I see. I think Loma is going to be the more powerful, impactful striker, too. I think she's going to get her ground and pound going. Elise Reed, I mean, I don't know if it's going to be as bad as this Jory Eubanks one, because that was like uncomfortable to watch. But I think Loma just rinse and repeat with takedowns, going to get a lot of ground and pound. Elise Reed's get up game is not very good, even though she's going to be the bigger fighter here. And I know she has a reach advantage. I just don't think it'll matter. I think Loma's going to find her way inside, get her up against the cage, throw this to the mat. That reach will mean nothing. So I like Loma. I don't really love betting chalky women's MMA. I know that. But I do like her this week, and I do like her by KO as a real small prop on that. I don't think the sub's live. I'll put that. I know they're going to be on the ground, but I do not think she's going to. I don't think she's attempted a sub in the UFC at this point. So,
yeah, I tend to agree with the sub not being the most optimal way of finishing this fight, although she will be landing the takedowns. Before I get into my breakdown, non-affiliate, I have a general betting question. I'm new to tracking bets, taking it more seriously. Any tips for someone starting out? I think just go ahead and sign up for MMA tips. Everything's free on there for the most part if you want to just track your bets and track everything when it comes to MMA, whether it's Bellator, UFC, PFL, any other organization, they have it all. And that way you'll be able to find the edge or your perceived edge in which market, if it's a specific weight class, and just start there and keep going, because that's the way I started, and I'm still here, thankfully. But onto my breakdown here. The people's main event, as I mentioned, Loma is a big favorite here for, I feel like, mainly because of the takedown ability and the takedown defense deficiency on the Elise Reed side. I think Elise Reed's takedown defense is just non-existent. She's probably going to get taken down more than a couple of times here. And when you're doing that and you're allowing someone like Loma to take you down, Loma's pretty dirty when it comes to the clinch elbows and the elbows on the ground. And I think that's the way she's going to get her out. It's going to be via ground and pound. For me, in this with this price at -280, -270, I did go ahead and lay the chalk, although I hate doing it on women's MMA. I think this is one of those spots where the price is right. It's not too expensive and it's not too cheap for the Loma side. And I'm pretty comfortable laying that 280. So I did that to win a unit. And I'm also going to be playing the inside the distance for Loma. For me, I don't really rate Elise Reed all that much. Her striking is all right, but I think in distance, Loma is actually the better striker here, because she can keep Elise at bay with the kicks. And once she clinches up with her, I think it leads ultimately to a takedown over and over again. If Elise Reed has worked on her takedown game, sure, by all means, all credit goes to her. But I think she's in some real trouble here. So give me Loma Lookboonmee in this spot. Gordo, what's your breakdown here? What do you think?
How terrifying is it that one of my favorite and I guess most parlayable piece on this card is Loma Lookboonmee? What is going on, guys? Like, I have to agree. I don't see anything. Oh my God, Mushroom has a YouTube. Shout out to him. Yeah, Loma, it's her world in this one. I think she's better almost everywhere here. I have backed Elise Reed in the past with some success. And no, not doing it here. It's Loma season. I thought it'd be hot takes given this KO prop, but obviously we're all in this together, which maybe is a good sign. Plus 420 squad ride. Anybody? I'm in. No, it is going to be a fun spot here. I do think it's going to be a fight where Loma's able to showcase her ability. She's going to be almost better everywhere, in my opinion, and it's really hard for me to see any angle. At least Reed wins this one, maybe by a very pitter-patter like rangy decision, but that's going to be to the detriment of Loma Lookboonmee. That's going to be if Loma Lookboonmee does not push her pace. So, my opinion, give me Loma all day. I haven't placed a bet on it, but I would play the KO for a sprinkle parlay piece if you're that desperate, but not one I've placed yet.
I like it. All four horsemen are aligned here, so we already know the record there. Next up, we have Jack Jenkins going up against Don Shainis. And I believe it's my turn. Jenkins making his debut after a KO win on the Contender Series, and he's a big favorite. Some markets have him around -330. I think Don Shainis, from what I watch on tape, he's kind of a madman who goes up for takedowns early. tries to go for it early, but tends to gas. And I think what Jenkins would have to do is to weather that early storm if he wants to get the win here. I know Don Shainis does try to throw all his output in that first round before he tends to gas out. But after that first round and a half, I think it's one-way traffic for Jack Jenkins here. He outmatches him on the feet and will likely get the finish, in my opinion, in the later rounds. Jenkins is the hometown prospect here, so I kind of have to play the narrative there of them wanting to promote Jack Jenkins and Don Shainis, who not really is someone that is a household name when it comes to casual UFC fans. I don't think people would want to back Shainis in this spot. So give me Jenkins. Give me Jenkins inside the distance. I haven't played it myself, but I think that's the way to go. Gordo, what do you think?
Yeah, I have to agree with that sentiments you got there. Jack Jenkins seems to be the side in this one. He is the hometown guy. He's going to guy with the measurables advantage too. He's going to be the taller guy, longer reach, hometown, younger. Like this is the guy that they want to promote here. Don Shainis is someone who, you know, he had a tough fight in his debut, and it went accordingly. He wasn't able to get that win over Sadiq Youssef, but what do you expect him to do there? But no, you guys are right. He is just a powerful guy. Look at all those first round wins in his record. The guy likes to get it done early and throws everything in his punches to do so. Jack Jenkins, I like what I saw from him in his Dana White Contender Series bout. I mean, he averages 4.14 takedowns for 15 minutes. He went out there, he was active with it, and I like to see that. And I think he's going to have a similar pathway, not only earlier on, because I think he's going to have the wrestling advantage here, being the stronger, more physical guy, but especially later as Shainis gasses. I think this is Jack Jenkins world. I think he's a very sneaky play on DraftKings just a matter of fact that no one's going to know the name, no one's going to know who this guy is, and he's going to go a little overlooked, little lower owned, and for that reason, going to have that same finishing ability and ability to cut a lot of points in a decision win as well. So Jack Jenkins seems to be the side for me, especially on DraftKings. But will I get to the window for it? Don't know yet. I think this might be one where we have two guys who are fresher to the UFC, maybe want to gather some more information before I put my hard-earned money on it and just take a DraftKings stab on it instead.
I like it. Liam.
Yeah, this is a fight I have to do a little bit more due diligence on. I definitely remember thinking that Jack Jenkins was a side on the Contender Series fight that he had. I can't remember if I bet it or not. Either way, I think that Jenkins is probably the A side. He's probably the side that the UFC is looking to push here. But a couple interesting notes was just that Don Shainis, he seems like a pretty dangerous guy in terms of how he can finish fights. Like, he's got some submission equity. I know he got caught in a choke early on in his fight, but he's pretty dangerous with his own grappling when he's in offensive positions. And also, like you mentioned, sells out his punches on the feet. He's trying to swing for the fences and go for the finish. I noticed that the public is a lot more bullish on the Jenkins side than the odds makers were. They opened at minus 300. Public's bet it up 75 cents already. But then you look at some of the individual markets. They opened Shainis inside the distance plus 365 on Bet Online, and it's up to plus 500. So you're seeing some regression in these lines, but that's because nobody's playing. It's because people are coming in on the other side. They're coming in on Jenkins. They have to offer you a better number to get some balance now back on their book. And I think that they're a little bit surprised. They opened plus 550 on the knockout prop for Shainis, and now they have the ITD at virtually the same number as what they opened the KO. So I just think that all tells me that, the odds makers are a little bit surprised by the bullishness on Jenkins, but I think it's a well-matched fight. I think that Shainis, this is a much more winnable fight for him than his first fight. And he's going to be much better prepared as well. So I think we're going to see whether Don Shainis belongs at this level because he's been tested on a better regional scene. I think that's pretty fair to say.
I tend to agree with that regional scene comment. He has been tested. Lou, what do you got?
Let me tell you why I'm not going to get to Jenkins at all here. Just going to add on to what you guys said. Jenkins is kind of a slow starter for me in a lot of his fights. He's not like Peter Yan where he's losing the first round, but he's another guy he likes to kind of measured approach to begin fights. Don Shainis is literally the exact opposite of that. Shainis is somebody who within 5 seconds will be within 3 inches of Jack Jenkins. We know the approach he's going to use. Now, do I love Shainis's cardio as the fight gets to the 7-8 minute mark? No, I don't. Jenkins so far has looked very comfortable. His power's pretty good late. Very technical. And Shainis is pretty sloppy, if I'm being honest. Like, his technique's pretty sloppy. Like he just kind of bull rushes you and tries to get it to the ground. But you give me a guy who's live round one against a guy who's a slow starter making his debut, who has been finished in the first round before. This is kind of why I'm off the fight completely. I don't want to take a newcomer at minus 360. I don't want to really take Don Shainis. I will say, if you wanted a fun way to play this fight, I think Shainis's win condition is round one finish. It's plus 1100 without taking a method. I think that's, if you just want to have a little bit of fun with it, plus 1100 for his win condition, really not terrible. And I think, he's going to be going for a finish in round one. I don't think he's going to be standing back just trying to like work his jab for 5 minutes. Like he's going to crowd Jenkins, going to get in his face. I don't favor him to win in the fight. I want to make this clear, but I do think his win condition is early and often, and plus 1100. There are worse looks you can have at that number. The side is Jenkins for the show, but that there's a path for Shainis, and it's round one.
I might have to play that Shainis round one prop myself. I do like the tag there, especially without giving a method. Before we make our way into the next fight, we made our first round around the panel. If you guys haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe on the video. And not only to me, make sure you follow and subscribe Gordo and at Plays and Fades Sports, Liam at Liam Picks Fights, and Lou Betcha on Twitter, MMA Engine on YouTube, if you haven't already. Great content all around from these guys, and obviously we're the Horsemen. Next fight, we have Jamie Mullarkey going up against Francisco Prado. Gordo, kick us off.
Yeah, and just like that last fight, this is another one where I think that a finish could be very likely. And I didn't get to it last time. I'm the one bet I'm on the fence for this entire card. Well, there's two of them. One of them is going to be the under in that Jenkins fight. We'll have to see where I get to it. But this is one where I did already play the under, minus 150 for the under 2.5. And it's been a very popular play. I know Lou's going to talk on that because Lou's got his whole narrative nation behind it. He's going to chat. But to me, it's a pretty simple fight where you've got a guy in Prado who's got 11 wins, all of them finishes. The guy is very violent, but he's seemed to slow down a bit. You add in the fact that he's coming in on short notice. He's going to get those nerves the first time. He's going to have a tall task if he cannot get Mullarkey out there early, because Mullarkey builds as the fight goes on. He's not a fast starter. And this is pretty similar to the Shainis versus Jenkins dynamic, is one of them's a very fast starter. The other one's kind of slow. So what's the path to victory for Prado, in my opinion? You're going to get a first round knockout out of him. That's going to be his path to victory. Is it impossible? No, Mullarkey's been finished before. So it's definitely something I could see being a realistic outcome. When we're looking at picking a fighter we think going to win, though, it's got to be Mullarkey, in my opinion. He's fought the better level of competition. He does have some decent power in his own right, and his volume's only going to build in that second and third round. And I do think he's able to get Prado out of there if he's still alive after that first round. So violence for me, popular play, but I do have to agree with that one. Give me a fight ending. Let's say round 2 ground and pound from Mr. Mullarkey, and that guy's eyebrows. So terrifying eyebrows.
It's almost drawn on him. Liam, what do you think about this fight?
Tricky one here, my man. As far as this one goes, like Jamie Mullarkey as a big favorite, I just can't do it. Like it's just not for me. The nerves, the heartache, like all that stuff, I can't do it. If I was to, identify the path to victory, I think it's just the knockout. It's being booked at plus 575 in some places. Sharp markets are way down on that. Yeah, I agree with you, Mushroom. I mean, it's like pretty clear what Prado has to do in this fight. He's got to go out there and swing heavies and try and knock this guy's head off. I don't think that that's outside of the realm of possibility. I mean, Jamie Mullarkey is not above being hit cleanly right on the face over and over in his fights. I think that against somebody who's really young and just hungry and trying to come swing for his head with reckless abandon, that's the kind of fight that he could definitely lose. But he's also shown that he could outlast guys that are like that. Combo worthy. Doesn't have a great chin, but he can deliver punishment. He can hurt people. He knocked out Devontae Smith and changed his whole UFC career as one of the biggest underdogs in UFC history, right? It's like combo worthy can bang, but if you hit him back, he doesn't really like it. He kind of folds up shop. I don't know if that's going to be true for Prado, but I have a bad feeling. He's a young guy being put in a really tough situation on short notice, halfway across the world at a different time. It's like there's a lot of things that aren't being situationally favorable for him to make this kind of debut. So with all that being considered, in Jamie Mullarkey's backyard, former opponent of Volkanovski, they're probably trying to get him, across the finish line here. But I thought he really struggled to get across the finish line against Michael Johnson last time out. And Michael Johnson's not a 20-year-old, you know, and there's benefits and cons to being 20 years old. One of them is fearlessness. This kid's going to come forward and swing heavies at his head and not care about what's coming back at him. And that could be a recipe for success. So I think the knockout and the round 1 knockout would be how I look to target Prado. Or like my man Mushroom says, the ITD. That I think is his path. I think if this goes to decision, Jamie Malarkey could easily out wrestle him if he decided to over the course of this fight. I think just based on pace and pressure alone, whether the techniques work or not, I think after round 1, he will just do enough to wear on him physically. So Malarkey's a big guy at 55. We got to remember that as well. Like he's really filled out at the weight class, long guy as well. I think that he's got a lot to offer, but he's also just not defensively sound. So those guys as big favorites, I can't do it.
Lou, what you got? We kind of have a preview.
I know you guys remember being 20. I do not. That was more than 20 years ago. He's old. I mean, I could be this dude's dad, like my age. So it's weird that I'm gonna like talk about betting on him. I want to talk about the under real quick. So one of my big rules, and Liam, you're doing something right now called Never Have I Ever, which I think is awesome and brilliant. If you guys haven't checked out what he's doing, it's interesting. When this year started, I audit my bets. I want to see where I can prove where I'm making mistakes. One of the things that I've been doing wrong is trying to cheat lines with in the distance props to get like a -500, like with Zubara, like for instance, like to get a -500 guy down to a reasonable bet. What I realize is a lot of where I'm going wrong with a lot of these bets, like Preston Parsons against Evan Elder, is when you have a guy in the regionals who's undefeated, you really don't know how they deal with adversity. You don't know how tough they are. Do they wilt? Do they like are they easy submitted when their cardio starts sapping? So this guy's never been finished. He's never lost. So I have no indications that he's going to be horrible in the second round or third round of this fight, that he's going to wilt as soon as he gets hit, because I feel like the narrative in Twitter this week is Prado round 1 or Malarkey round 2. And I just don't think that's necessarily the case. I don't have proof that that's the case. So Prado's striking is pretty sloppy. His regional tape, he's facing some like absolute bums, but he's doing what he's supposed to do. He's coming forward and he's knocking fools out. So I can't criticize him for it. Malarkey, as Gordo mentioned, is like a horrendously slow starter. Devonta Smith was tagging him in the first round. Karma Worthy stinks. So like, whatever. He got him out of there early. That's the only guy he could like beat in the first round. Karma Worthy's not UFC caliber. But Devonta Smith was
Kama Worthy's the GOAT, dude. If Kama Worthy had Max Holloway's chin, the guy would be a freaking world champion. The guy just had the chin of not a very good fighter.
He has the chin of this piece of paper I have my notes on. So I think I like Prado. I like the Prado round 1 look. Malarkey he's taken a lot of damage. And the last thing I'm going to say about not wanting to get on the under or like a Malarkey in the distance prop is the corpse of Michael Johnson, like Liam brought up. Like Michael Johnson hurt him. He couldn't finish Johnson. You know, he had good spots. You can make a case Johnson won the fight. Like I could make a case for it. I think Malarkey on rewatch, he did win, but certainly way closer than it should have been. I think Malarkey's a fun fighter, and I think people are confusing that with him being a finish machine. So I'm hesitant to do time props. I'm not trying to talk anybody off it. I'm just saying why I don't want to do the under, because I think Malarkey has decision equity. Prado does not. Malarkey certainly has decision equity. So yeah, not in this case. So I like the round 1 look for Prado. It's probably his best approach, but that's it. I'm just going to take a poke on the prop here, and I'm laying off anything else with this fight. I just have a bad feeling about it. I got to trust my instincts.
Before I get into my breakdown, shout out to my guy Pat from Addicted to Combat. If you haven't already, subscribe to him. Weekly UFC content. And my boy MMA Locker Room, lifelong friend. Appreciate him. So in this fight, Prado's coming in on short notice. He's 20 years old, fairly green. If you look at some of his regional stuff, like Malarkey, he can get hit, but the difference is that he hasn't really reacted to those hits. He doesn't show like the facial expression of him not liking being hit or being hurt. All of his wins have come by way of finish. And Prado hasn't really fought the best of competition, but he does carry power. And Malarkey also carries power, but can also get hit, as I mentioned. On top of that, I think the cardio is suspect just because we haven't really seen it with Prado. So we need more film. We need more tape on it. we don't have too much to look at in terms of fight tape with this guy Prado. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a tall task for him. But if he does want to get this done, he has to get it done early, in my opinion. As Lou mentioned, round 1, maybe round 2. Not a bad look at all for Prado. I like the under 2.5, but something screams at me here saying that this is going to go to decision and Twitter's going to flip upside down when everyone loses the under 2.5 bets that they have. And that's what's scaring me off of it. I wouldn't be against taking a dog shot on Prado inside the distance, but myself, I probably won't get to the window with it. So completely passing on this fight, but it should be really entertaining. One of the more entertaining fights on this card. But next up, we're going to be breaking down Clayton Rodriguez versus Shannon Ross. Liam, I believe it's your turn.
Yeah, I think that Shannon Ross, one of the more surprising additions to the UFC roster. I think that probably happened as a result of the location, convenience, and the fact that they kind of want to get this other guy back in the driver's seat, right? They brought him in, they had him looking pretty good, and then kind of fell off the rails, right? Took some damage, had a tough fight. Now they'd like to get him back on the horse. I think that's why they set this fight up. I don't think that Shannon Ross is UFC level. I don't think he's long-term. Being brought in at 33 years of age, coming off of a loss inside the distance on the Contender Series, is that by coincidence? I don't think so. I think that they'd like, Rodriguez to get back on the horse here with a finish. I think that he's going to have the better jiu-jitsu. I think he's going to have the better stand-up. I think that on the feet, it's a more competitive fight. If I were him, I would take it to the ground and submit this guy. And I might put some money on that. We'll see how it goes. I haven't bet it yet, but that's kind of my lean here.
I like it. Lou.
Yeah, this is a get right fight. And this is I'll leave the DFS to my friend and colleague Gordo, but I might have like 100% of this guy in my lineups. I think any win he gets is going to get like 120 points. Shannon Ross, man, I think I had a bet on him in the Contender Series. So like not my finest play of that series. I don't know if Liam, if you had a bet on him, but I did. And you knew that bet was done in like 2 seconds. Striking defense is awful. Clayton Rodriguez against like Vergara is interesting because I know Tyra finished him, but Vergara is really good at minute winning. And he's really good at winning minutes late in fights. And I think what Rodriguez is kind of, you watch that back and you could tell there was like a point near the end of the second round where he's like, why aren't things going my way? And Vergara just started, even made it ugly and just started winning minutes. He wasn't really doing any damage, but he did what he had to do to win minutes of that fight and steal that decision. Not steal it, but win the decision. It's a good learning opportunity for Rodriguez. I know like there's no moral losses, but it's almost good that he lost for him because I think now he has something to build off of going forward. Shannon Ross is not going to take this fight to the ground. I'm with Liam. I think a sub's very live here. I think if you're Clayton Rodriguez, as bad as Shannon Ross's striking defense is, don't even screw around. Just get this fight to the ground where Ross is going to have absolutely nothing for him. Just beat his ass. He could just pound him out on the ground too. Like in the distance is plus 130. I already hit it. I love it. I think, I don't know if I'm going to do the sub, but I think the sub's super live. Ross is, any tape I saw him, I saw no resistance on the ground. Outside of him landing a few lucky shots because Rodriguez just gets lazy, I don't see a path for him here. And I don't see how Ross goes 15 minutes in this fight. So Rodriguez in the distance all day for me. One of my favorite bets on the card and my favorite DFS anchor in all my lineups.
Yeah, I tend to agree with the inside the distance look. Obviously, Ross is coming in here making his debut at 34 off of a Contender Series loss, which we don't really see all that often. So it makes me think, like, why are they bringing this guy in? And Clayton in the past couple fights has kind of under-delivered. Like, he hasn't really paid off the price tag because he's consistently been around that minus 300 to minus 350 favorite in these fights. But he tends to fight down to the competition. He tends to fight close with some of these guys. And that's what scares a lot of people off of him in this spot. But I think this is the ultimate get-right spot for Clayton Rodriguez. And if he can't capitalize, then he's going to have a real problem on his hands. Clayton's really good on the feet and mixes up his strikes really well, especially with the kicks. And Ross leaves a lot of openings to being taken down and to being hit. So ultimately, this leads me to taking the Rodriguez inside the distance with you, Lou. I'm on it as well. He has more tools to win this fight. 3 wins by KO. I think he gets this done inside the distance, as I mentioned. And if anyone wants to parlay him up, I think this is a safe parlay piece. Gordo, what do you think?
I got some bad news for you guys. I already mushed this bet because I got CLV on it, so it's already lost. They opened this Rodriguez
Drop
at
your
minus
tickets,
180.
boys.
I know.
I'm playing. I'm totally playing, bro.
They opened this at minus 180 for Rodriguez. I hopped in at minus 188. I thought that was absolutely absurd. And
you're like Gombis. That's Gombis level CLV.
Do I get the cool little tweet about it too?
Yes.
Even if
win or lose, you have to make the tweet.
All right. Well, you know what? It feels unlucky now, and I feel dangerous. But man, that line was insane. Why is Ross here? Don't know. Rodriguez is a guy who may have underperformed last time, and he broke a lot of people's hearts, including myself, because he was $9,400 on DraftKings. He was a guy that people anticipated to do very well. He didn't do that well, right? So Rodriguez is a get right spot. You guys said all the things. I'm not going to go too on about this. I do think it's the spot he's able to go out there and implement his better overall skill set, younger, longer reach. It's Rodriguez's world, and I think he gets it done this weekend.
We align again. On to the next one.
Horsemen ride.
Oh yeah, we ride. Joshua Kulabau going up against the gun, Melsik Bagdasaryan. Lou, I believe it's your turn to kick us off here.
Oh man, so I like Melsik. Just give me a sec. Like, I like watching him fight. I like the idea of Melsik Bagdasaryan. He's a dude with like crazy ass power, like great kicks. But I feel like this is a horrible matchup for him because the Souza fight was so telling for me. It now shows me that Bagdasaryan has a fight that he doesn't like, and he needs the opponent to bring him a certain type of fight. He was incredibly ineffective against Souza. Now, Souza fought like, I'm just going to say it the way it needs to be said. He fought like a fucking pussy. All right. Like, all he did was like run away from him for 15 minutes. So, of course, Bagdasaryan's not going to gas out there, but he does tend to slow down as these fights go on. Meanwhile, with Kulabau, man, I had the poke on him against Choice. I was really happy for him to get the win, but I think he's going to dart in and out. I think he's going to make this, he's going to point fight at least early. He's going to sap that tank. The one worry I have if I'm Kulabau is he's susceptible to getting leg kicked. And man, this is a dude you just do not want to get kicked by, because it may not take many from Melsik to like just completely change the course of the fight. But I think Kulabau can stay in and out of range, can make this. It's not going to be super exciting. I'd actually lean overs here if I was going to do a time prop, which I'm not, because Kulabau's pretty tough. But I think Melsik's best chance is going to be early, but Kulabau, and I'm curious to see what Liam says about this. Even though he hasn't done on the UFC level, I kind of think he has an underrated path to wrestling here if Kulabau really wants it. We've seen Melsik's, his get-up game's decent, but his takedown defense is not. And I wonder if Kulabau, at least the idea of him mixing in takedowns, can get Melsik Bagdasaryan off balance here. Wiz, I know where you stand on this fight, and I'm gonna say Kulabau here. I haven't bet it yet. I think, and in the line's starting to move toward Kulabau. He's minus 120 on DraftKings the last I looked. I knew they were minus 110 each the other day, but it looks like a little bit of money is coming in. Oh, he's back to 110, so maybe not. So I side Kulabau. I think I'm going to get there on the betting window.
It's like you're reading off my notebook.
Well, I mean, we did a show last night. When you left the room, I stole all your shit.
You stole my freaking notes, dude. What the hell? But yeah, Kulabau, big power. We know that. Explosive, really good boxing, and when he catches your chin, you're getting hurt. He's faced some serious competition when you take a look at it. The likes of Jourdain, Choi, and Shailan are not names that are unfamiliar to the casual UFC fan. So I have to favor Kulabau when it comes to the strength of schedule. If he's able to mix in the takedowns, it should serve him well. I know he hasn't done it too much on the UFC level, but on the regionals, he did show that he has that takedown ability. And he tends to slow down just a little bit as the fight goes on, but can't really do that against Melsik. I don't think it should be a factor because he does fight through that fatigue. It's not like he slows down and completely shells up. That's what I like about him. Melsik is a serious striker in his own right who really knows how to mix in the kicks, and they're brutal. They're brutal. Like, he has a phenomenal kicking game. And Bagdasaryan's pretty accurate at range. He just hasn't faced the best competition in the UFC, I would say. It hasn't impressed me as much. And against a guy like Souza, where he was like, yeah, he was chasing him the whole time, but I mean, you could find ways to cut off that octagon, especially when at that weight class. I think it's a step up for Bagdasaryan here. I'm taking Kulabau, sprinkle on Kulabau inside the distance as well. Kulabau is also the hometown kid, so the crowd's going to be favoring him in that matchup as well. Gordo, what do you like here?
I got to oppose you guys here. I am on the Melsick side, and it doesn't mean I'm going to get to the window about it. I just think this is a fight where I can't wrap my head around Kulabau being a favorite here, because when we look at the type of people, the archetype of people we should be beating Melsick, it's people who crowd you and people are going to take this guy down. And I don't think that, although Kulabau is going to have, of course you can crowd him, but I don't think he has that takedown ability in his own right. I mean, the guy's got a 0% takedown percentage. Melsick, if he does one thing, is get right back up. So to me, it's in a 15-minute kickboxing battle, who do I think has the edge here? And although Kulabau has been a great dog to back at huge plus money number, it's a whole other thing when you're expecting him to win this fight, when he's favored to win this fight. And I don't think that you can really
And he's gone. That's a great
go
picture to
out there
freeze on, by the way.
and say he wins pocket as powerful as Melsick. Oh, did I freeze?
You froze there for a second.
No, I was on a roll, man. I was on a roll. Anyways, I back to my point. Try not to say things too often. It's hard to back Kulabau as a favorite. I get why you want him as a dog, because he can crowd Melsick, because he can cut off the cage, because he can make it so this guy has nowhere to go. But in my eyes, when we're looking at who wins this fight at a higher percentage, it is going to be Melsick, because he does have that good footwork to get away from the range. I do think he's going to be landing the more impactful strikes, in my opinion, because he's got this ability to move around the cage with some good footwork, and I do think it is Melsick's role in the feet. So can I trust Kulabau to go out there, shoot takedowns, land him at a high clip? Don't think so. I think it's the volume and the technical ability of Melsick in a kickboxing bout. That's just the way it lines up, right? If you get a huge underdog price tag on Kulabau like he's been in his last few bouts, sure, you take the shot on him here, but I can't get with you guys there. Gun to my head, I am picking Melsick. And that's no pun intended, because his nickname is the Gun. But gun to my head, I am picking Melsick.
I love it, the opposing pick. Liam, what do you have here?
I'm going to make it a 2-on-2. We got tag teams going, and Team UFC Columbus, we're over here. Here's what I'll say. I think that when you look at this fight, right, I've actually been a huge Josh Kulabau truther. I bet him against Charles Jourdain and got a push and wanted to puke in my hands at like plus 380 or whatever it was. I bet him against Sungwoo Choi for 1 unit at plus 200. So I got my get backs, got some money off of this Josh Kulabau character. And I think he's a good fighter, man. I think he's a talented guy. But I also think Melsick's a talented guy. You know, I just think that this is like a tough matchup between two really skilled fighters. And when I look at Melsick, I think he's a little bit more sharp. I think he's a little bit more technical. And I think he's just a little bit harder hitting to multiple layers. So like you look at Josh Kulabau, he'll drop people with big headshots, but he doesn't always have the greatest finishing instincts. Like he's dropped a number of guys in the UFC. He's not putting them away. Don't like to see that. Like to see you find a finish, hop on the guy's back, find a way to put him away. Couldn't put him away. Did a lot of damage. Couldn't put him away. That's why he's getting the draw with Jourdain. Otherwise, he would have been the winner that night. So it's like, for me, that's a problem on the Kulabau side. That's part of the reason why he hasn't been a big favorite. It's also an experience thing. He's now had 4 or 5 UFC bouts. Maybe we see some of those improvements. Maybe we see some adaptations. But that's not something we've seen. Whereas with Melsick, we've seen him put guys away in 45 seconds. We've seen him hit guys with 1 strike and they're all done. He can hit guys to the body. He can throw big kicks and he can throw them upstairs as well. He's got big punches as well. A lot of things that he can do to put you away with those hands. I think that for those reasons, I think Melsick's the scarier guy. I think most of the time, if you have a very close fight, they're going to favor whoever will win round 1 at a high clip. I think Melsick wins round 1 here at a very high clip. I think it's from that point on. If Kulabau is still alive, then he's going to start making his dent. He's going to get back in the fight. But I just think Melsick's a handful in round 1. If you're going to keep it on the feet, it's going to be a banger where you're going to be on the receiving end of a lot of big shots. And Kulabau, you could say a lot of positive things about him. Most of the time, you're not talking about his defense when you're saying positive things. You're talking about his offense. Like, the guy can do good work. He's tough as all hell. You could say nice things about his character and his attributes. but not that he's like defensively responsible. He's always putting it on the line. His chin's hanging out there, and he doesn't look like the most athletic guy. Just like eye test for eye test, Melsick looks like a gun. You know, he looks like a guy who's like a fighter. Like, you know, it's just a little bit of a different deal, I think, athletically, but I'm rooting for Josh Coolabah. I hope he continues his run. I hope that he gets the respect he deserves. This is a tough fight, though. I don't think the UFC did him any favors. Booking Melsick off a big layoff, you know, that could be a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe Melsick's better now. You know, it's like he needed to improve some things. I think it was smart for him to go away. He needed to get a little bit better with the cardio. He needed to get a little bit better with the wrestling and grappling. If he's done that, I think he's a real prospect in the division, and I think he's got a little bit more athletic upside.
I'm just saying, 2-2.
I get drawn into these shoeys when I don't make these bets. This is like the third time now.
Oh, you love it. You love doing shoey bets, especially when Wiz
Yeah.
and I are like, you're doing a shoey bet.
Yeah, and like
Tag team.
in 5-6 years, when, you know, I'll be Dr. Gordo Gambles, all people will look me up, and this is what we'll see is me doing shoeys.
I love it.
They'd be like, this is a guy I can trust.
Yeah, this is a guy who knows his way around.
You're
the
gonna keep Gambles in the doctor name as well, Dr. Gordo
Dr.
Gambles.
Gambles.
I just didn't want to say my last name. Maybe I should. You know.
Not Dr. Gambles. G Gambles.
Yeah, Dr. Gambles. That's my. No, I'm not gonna go there. Yes, Dr. Gambles.
All right. Next up, we have Tyson Pedro going up against Modestas Bukauskas, and I believe it's my turn to lead off this discussion. So I think a lot of things about this fight. If Modestas wasn't on short notice, maybe would have taken a stab there. Tyson Pedro, just saying it how it is, he hasn't won a fight that has left the first round. It's the one thing that just sticks out to me. He carries a lot of power. He uses it in round one, but he tends to gas out once that second round hits, just because of the amount of volume he tries to put out, and quite frankly, he tries to put out his opponent in that same way. He surprisingly, for 18 minutes, he opened up at minus 1,000 in this matchup. Whoever put that line out is probably fired right now. But yeah, Bukauskas is coming back to the UFC after winning 2 fights and becoming champion of Cage Warriors. He looked a little bit more improved. His cardio is held up, and it looks decent here. None of these fighters have fought the best level of competition, in my opinion. But the issue for me, as I stated before, was that he's coming in on short notice against the hometown kid. It's going to be a little tough. And when you look at Modestas Bukauskas, he's been finished before. He's been hurt before, and he's been finished early, which plays right into the game plan and the fight style of Tyson Pedro, who will chew up your leg with the leg kicks, who will throw big power in the hands and try to completely take you out in that first round. So I want reasons to bet Modestas here, but I just can't pull the trigger. Dog or pass situation regardless for me, unless you wanted to play Pedro KO 1. I mean, I'm not sure how good of a price you're going to get there. But for me, I think Pedro wins, but moneyline side, I'm going to have to say Bukauskas. Gordo, what do you got here?
Do you know who's better than Tyson Pedro? His manager. They're 3.5 years off, and he gets Ike Villanueva, Harry Hunsucker, and now Modestas Bukauskas, who's 1-3. Like, good for you. That's a great manager, and we'll talk about another manager in the next fight too. But man, like, Pedro's getting these matchups, and I know we haven't seen him extended. We haven't seen him do well after that first round, but what we have seen from his return is he looks like he's doing all the right things. He looks like he's improving. He's doing exactly what you expect people to do to Harry Hunsucker, to Ike Villanueva. And although I can't get there and say convincingly that he's going to dominate Bukauskas, I think he has the right skill set to do so. I think he has the ability to go there, not only implement his ground game, but also show off that new striking he's been working on and really look to be able to contend in those later rounds. I'm on Tyson Pedro here. I think he wins this fight. I'm not one to go out there and say you should be parlaying him, because he's not the most secure fighter. He's not a guy you can trust a lot with a big financial investment. What I'm saying is he has a path of victory here. He is a solid grappler. He's got solid takedowns. He's worked on that striking as well. Heavy leg kicks. And I'm a fan of Tyson Pedro, right? How am I targeting that? That's the question. And I've been struggling with that. And I really ultimately came to this is a pass, because I think on DraftKings, you're going to want to have both sides, because if Pedro loses this fight, it's probably because he gasses out and Modestas can get a finish at a low salary. But do I want to trust either of these guys on the money line? Do I want to trust a total here when Pedro could be working on that cardio, could be able to extend this with later rounds to wrestling? Not really. So this is a fight where I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to go back to my favorite saying and gun to my head. Well, I wouldn't bet on this. Is what I would do.
I love it. Liam.
Yeah, this one's going to be pretty clear for me. It's a dogger pass situation, 100% in my opinion. I think Tyson Pedro is kind of fraudulent. Just to tell you the truth, like the matchups he's been getting, yes, they are good for him financially and like in terms of highlight reels and stuff like that. Is he developing his game? Are we seeing like big leaps and improvements? I mean, he's beating up a bunch of cans. Like that's what he was doing when he looked good in the UFC. And then he fought somebody that could offer him resistance. And in this case, we're talking about Shogun Hua, 6 years past his prime, and he got beat, and I think he suffered an injury in that fight. But did you see the resolve did you wanted? Did you see the heart, the pushback? No. If you bet him every time out as a favorite, you're losing money hand over fist. That's just the God's honest truth. If you've done that historically, you've lost money on this guy. He's not been a good investment, and yet he opens a massive favorite once again. Modestas Bukauskas, am I saying you should rush to the window to bet on him? No, because that hasn't always worked out either, right? He's had a pretty rough run as an underdog in the UFC. But, Andreas Michailidis was a good enough win, to be like 2 steps away from a title shot for Alex Pereira. And then, that kind of win means nothing for a different guy, right? It's like, I think that's something interesting to take note of. On top of that, Modestas has a real redemption arc here. He's going to be hungry as shit. He's coming in here wanting to win. And he probably knows if I could extend this guy to the second round, if I could fight him like boring as all hell, grab a hold of him, clinch him against the fence and roll around like big guys sometimes do, and just like switch positions and underhooks on the fence for the first 5 minutes, he's probably going to gas out and quit. I don't know, man. For me, it's a clear dogger pass. The average odds for Tyson Pedro is -225, and he's 3-3. If you bet that long-term in any market, you will lose money hand over fist.
I tend to agree there, making those points. If only he wasn't a short notice favorite. It wasn't a short notice fight for him. That's the one thing holding me back here. Lou, what do you got?
So let me add the obvious thing to what everybody said then. How do you approach betting this fight? It's not dog or pass for me necessarily. It's live after round one. If Pedro can't win past round one and historically hasn't, what kind of price are we going to get on Modestas Bukauskas after one if he's been taken down, if he's been beaten up? We're probably going to get plus 500. We may get better than that. We don't know. At plus 500 after one, I'm intrigued. That's a price I could get behind. I know it's short notice. I realize he's the away team. I get all the narrative. But Pedro not winning outside of round one is not a mistake trend at this point. It is his style. It is how he expends his cardio. He doesn't have 10-minute cardio. I don't know that he has 8-minute cardio. Bukauskas, Liam brought up, like, this is a redemption arc. He's hungry. I mean, they got to know, survive the first round, and you're live here. So you give me plus 500 or better live, I'm all over it. That's the way I'm going to approach this fight. No bet pre-fight, looking to live bet Bukauskas. And look, if Pedro blows him out, I didn't lose a penny. So there you go.
Yeah, and then when you're looking back at it, obviously Bukauskas in his previous fights, he's been finished 4 times. So not the best look going up against somebody like Tyson Pedro, but I think his fight IQ has gone a long way since he was first in the UFC. So if he's able to play smart in that first round, I think he might be able to get this done. But moving on to the next fight, we have Jimmy Crute going up against Alonzo Menefield. We got some action here. And Gordo, I believe it's your turn, correct?
How the stars have aligned for me to break down this fight. Slow down. Okay. I do 2 written write-ups for Brett Apley, Daily Fan MMA. This is one of the ones I did. And just looking at all the statistical stuff and all the analytics, and how funny is this matchup, man? How funny is it from both a entertainment side of things and just like who these guys are, right? You have one side, this dude who is just a beast of a man, like a muscle mommy type figure. Like this guy could just put me in a crib, cradle me to sleep. This guy's huge, right? Other side of things, you got mullet daddy over there, like Jimmy Crute, who can, like, he has the IQ of a turnip. He doesn't know what he's doing when he's out there. He decides to strike with Anthony Smith, runs onto the same punch against Jamal Hill, and he also goes out there and he decides to give Serkinov has one path to victory. Well, do you think that's bad? Let's look at the level of competition. All right. I tweeted this out. This is like a little insight. The level of competition for Alonzo Menafield is just something that is hilarious, right? Because whoever his manager is, just like Tyson Pedro, also deserves a raise. Because
don't you dare bash Ed Shortfuse Herman. Don't you
I
dare
will bash
do it.
Ed. I will. You know what, Lou? I'll bash
Don't
you while
you
you're at
do
it.
it.
Ed Herman is almost as
Don't
old as Lou
bash
Betcha. That's how old this man is. Okay. No, I'm just kidding. You're going out there, you're facing, okay, you're losing to the corpse of St. OSP. That's fine. Then you face a guy who's now turned my Twitter search history to Fabio Charant horny because I was looking up clips. And that's now all my Twitter feed is because I was trying to put it in my YouTube video. All right. You beat that guy. Good for you. You don't even finish Ed Herman. You just beat Ed Herman, who is 93 years old at this point. And sorry, Lou, I'm sorry. You then lose to Thick Willie, which Liam's boy beat up Thick Willie. Didn't that happen? Yeah, nod yes. Like
low key.
He
wanted out of that match. That's all I'm saying.
I love Thick Willie, but if you want to be beating Jimmy Crute, you shouldn't be losing to Thick Willie over here. All right. So who do they do instead? They give him a guy whose name we don't even know. Wiz, you did a great interview, but who was that guy? Was that Askar Mozarov? Was that Mozarov? Askar? Not Askar. He's actually a good fighter. No one knows who this guy was. And of course, you dispatched of him easily. Good for you. And then he beats Misha Shirkinov, who's also on the older end. All this to say, Menafield's not fighting anyone level of the competition of Jimmy Crute. Skill for skill, I think Jimmy Crute is a lot more talented fighter. He's going to be quicker to the punch. He's going to have the better ground game. He's going to have fought the better level of competition. I think he wins this fight at a very high clip. The problem I have is that you got a guy who is just, what version of Jimmy Crute are we going to get? Is he going to go out there and just want to just point to the ground and throw down? Because that's the fight I attribute to Jimmy Crute. I don't think he's the smartest guy all the time. So I think with the right coaching, Jimmy Crute has the abilities to do well. I think he's got a decent skill set, and I think this is a fight he should be winning at a very, very high clip. Unfortunately, we all know that Alonzo Menafield can nuke anybody. We all know he has the power to go out there and dispose of anybody, which is why I'm not betting on this fight from moneyline perspective. The under is the way to go. You got the power of Menafield. If he doesn't get him out there early, he's probably going to gas. I don't think he can win minutes against Crute. I don't think he can win ground exchanges. And the other side of things, it's also a good DraftKings target because Menafield round one or bust. Crute has a lot of upside in his path to victory as well. Long-winded. I had fun researching this one. Yeah, Muscle Mommy versus Mullet Daddy. Who wins?
Amazing breakdown. Mullet Mommy and Muscle Daddy is how we're going to be referring to him from now on. Liam, what do you think about this matchup and how do you think it goes?
Yeah, somebody's asking in the chat, Nonstop Philly, shout out, says Crute by decision. No, I think he's going to finish this guy. As a matter of fact, light heavyweight fights more often than not, they're ending inside the distance. Just if you look historically, people do better on some weight classes than others, right? Lou was talking about before, like auditing your bets. My strength has always been light heavyweight for whatever reason. I'm at like 20% ROI in light heavyweight. And I think one of the things that people get lost in is like the quality of competition. And I think that the people that Alonzo Menafield has beaten are not very impressive overall. Like they are like the laundry list of beatable 205ers. And some of the guys he's lost to are also on that list. You understand what I'm saying? So like he's been getting a lot of the easier matchups and some of them he loses. This is a much more difficult matchup in my opinion. Like Jim Crute was a favorite against the current light heavyweight champion, Jamal Hill. Are people forgetting this? Because they're like shocked that he's favored here. It's like, yeah, he was favored against the guy who's got the damn strap last time out. Anybody remember that? Like, I bet Jamal Hill is a dog there small because I thought Jamal Hill's probably going to get easily out wrestled. Did you see what just happened with Paul Craig? Like, and then what happened? You know, Jim Crute got finished with the fourth punch of the fight from a guy who's an extremely heavy hitter, knocked out Johnny Walker in similar fashion. So like, I think that loss I can forgive. It's the fact he's coming back from the surgery. It's the fact that, you know, he's been away for a while. Those are the things that give me pause. Outside of that, I feel like skill for skill, you know, who's more aggressive on the feet and like willing to throw? I actually think it's Jimmy Crute. I think in recent fights, you know, we've seen a little bit more aggression from Alonzo Menafield, but it's almost being like coached into him. I heard that he's only bringing Pat Barry as his corner for this fight. Good luck. Yeah, that's all I can say. I think that Crute's probably going to submit him, but it's my opinion.
Lou.
So let's give Askar like a round of applause because indirectly, without him, you don't have a channel, Wiz. He's probably like
True.
he's probably the launching point for the channel. Now these guys broke it down
First video
perfectly.
on there.
I do think like with Krut's fight IQ, I just want to say that there is a possibility this fight could end where Menafield does this and Krut literally from across the cage runs face first without him even throwing a punch. Like just to see if he can do it. Like Krut does really stupid things that like I've been on the right and wrong side of his fights, and like it's infuriating because you're like he literally fought the worst game plan possible and then did it over and over again. I want to address Gordo's comments about Ed short fuse Herman and that whole fight. This is one reason that I can't stand Menafield. The ref told Herman, if you get kicked in the leg one more time, I'm stopping the fight. He said it out loud. We all heard it. So what did Menafield do? He threw no leg kicks in the third round. He did not throw one kick, even if it wasn't like a perfect shot. If he kicked him once, the ref literally said, I'm stopping it. So you want to talk about bad fight IQ? Menafield has it in spades too, man. Now, the one thing I'll say is Menafield's takedown defense has statistically, it's like 85%, but it's kind of a fraud number, I think. Yeah, I think Krut probably bops him early, but I made a play on Menafield because I just think the Menafield KO at plus 225, I liked the number. And honestly, it's more of a knock on Krut's fight IQ. I'm on the under with you, Gordo. That's one of my heavier plays of the week is the under.
Lou, I gotta ask then. I gotta ask, man. If you're betting Menafield KO, is Menafield in your Iron Man lineup?
I don't know yet because Evan hasn't made the thing. I don't know that he will be since he's like completely KO dependent and like his floor is 0. Like he could score 0 points. There are a lot of paths where Menafield gets 0. Like gets taken down, Krut gets on top, beats his ass, and Menafield gets you 0 points. So I don't know. But I think there's a couple of low guys here that are going to allow me to get to people that I think are like safer. But like I said, I played him because of the number. It's plus 225 is essentially his money line at this point. I don't love the play. I just literally Krut could like walk out, and he's coming off surgery, which is like another hesitation I have with Jimmy Krut. But I don't. Now that Liam said he likes Krut here, I don't know how good I feel about this bet. I think Liam's record with Krut is like 700 no. So like I don't want to go against the Krut whisperer.
No, I might have bet him against Anthony Smith because I felt like Anthony Smith was due for
if that round had,
and honestly, I feel like that fight, I'd love to do that one again. If he wins here, I'd love to do that one again. I bet Jim Krut is a big underdog. That would be beautiful.
I don't know if you get
one more minute.
Odds.
He might have won with one more minute left in that fight because he got the takedown. I'm saying is he might have beaten Anthony Smith. There's one more minute left in that round.
And Smith has been doing this weird thing where he comes out like a bat out of hell and then just like gasses out after like 4 minutes. Like I don't know when that started happening, but he did it against Glover and then weirdly just got out wrestled easily the rest of the fight. Like, do you know what I mean? He starts like a house on fire, just like endless combinations, throws 100 strikes, and then he can't breathe, and he's like just showing up in turtle for 5 minutes at a time. Like those are the things that make me think Krut would butcher him if they rematch. But
I don't think you get Krut as an underdog in that fight.
Isn't that
I think that you
even after he gets finished.
I bet Anthony Smith, and there's no way in hell I do that again. I got lucky, if I'm being honest. So I don't think, and I think everybody else can see it. I don't think Krut would be an underdog there. But then again, you know, it'd be the funniest things if they rematched and Krut did not wrestle. That would be funny.
That would be very surprising.
And not, yeah, I mean, it's possible.
His horrible fight IQ. Moving on to what I mean, I think I like the under in this fight, but I also could see a way of this historically going over, like another one of the like the Larky Prado over, where I said that it would be very funny if it does go over. I do think both of these guys probably have learned from that poor fight IQ. At least I would hope so for their sake. They might stretch us out over 1.5. but just going based off of what's done in the octagon and what their fight style entails, it's a perfect spot for the under. Crew has the chin liabilities coming off of the surgery, layoffs, and Menefield himself has a chin liability. Both these guys have no problem going berserk early and winging heavies. Creed's talented, but as we all mentioned, the IQ, like he's not all there sometimes, and makes some pretty questionable decisions. Super talented on the mat, and I think if he gets it there, he can finish Menefield on the mat. But Menefield does have some solid takedown defense. If this fight's on the feet, I think it's a pure coin flip, in my opinion. Give me the under as a slight lean, and moneyline side, I'm gonna have to lean Menefield just because it's such a volatile matchup, and I don't want to be caught grabbing anyone at these like prices. But moving on to the next one, we have Justin Tafa against Parker Porter. Oh man, this is the main event of the evening, as people would like to say. Liam, lead us off here.
I mean, shout out to the GOAT Parker Porter. He threw me the follow on IG, and he liked my video. So, I did the UFC Never Have I Ever. Never has he ever been on a UFC main card pay-per-view before. And Parker Porter gets his first opportunity here across from Justin Tafa, 1-1 in UFC pay-per-view main card appearances. He got flatlined in the first round in Australia, and he flatlined somebody in the first round. So done a little bit of both. Tafa, very inexperienced guy relative to Parker Porter. Parker Porter's been around since 2007. So when it comes to skills, technique, who's better at fighting, it's definitely Parker Porter. There's very little question in my mind. But who's fresher, who's a little bit closer to their athletic prime, who probably hits a little bit harder, that's Justin Tafa. He's a bad man for a reason. He's the guy who's going to be a little bit more dangerous if this fight's on the feet. But we've also seen that Parker Porter is able to mix up his game. He has a top game. He has jiu-jitsu, rare for big guys, right? We've seen Paul Craig make a career of this. So I do think that Parker Porter lacks some of the physicality that would be necessary for him to just take this guy down in the first round and finish him, in my opinion. But can Parker Porter drag this guy into a blood and guts, drag him out type of war where this guy gets more tired? Yeah, I definitely think he could do that as well. So it's a tricky fight. It's not an easy fight. But my lean would be Parker Porter to win this fight by submission or decision, probably by decision. I do not think he's going to take out Justin Tafa with the hands, but I do think he can outlast him, drag him to the ground, and submit him late in this fight. I also think he could just outwork him, out-technique him, be smarter over the course of 15 minutes. He's shown that in a number of UFC fights where the other guy might even hit harder, like Alain Badeau, but Parker just keeps a consistent pace. He mixes it up when he needs to. He'll shoot for a takedown. It's not an ego fight for him, and he comes forward constantly. That kind of pressure breaks a lot of people, and I think that Tafa is going to swing with everything to try and kill him. So if that doesn't work in the early going, he will probably have very little left down the stretch because he's a big man and he doesn't look like he carries his weight, the most athletically, to be fair. Can't say that Parker Porter does either, but
yeah, it's like a mirror matchup in that way. What do you think, Lou?
Sometimes you just got to have fun with a fight. And this is going to be that one. So without further ado, it's taken us to the main card, but this is your Yam Bag special of the card. It has the two crucial elements of a Yam Bag bet. It's Southpaw versus Doorstocks, and it has Parker Porter. It checks all the boxes for me in terms of what I want in a Yam Bag fight. And why stop there? If I'm going to bet Yam Bags, there's an auxiliary bet I got to make. I'm betting this fight to end in split decision at plus 800 odds. Porter's plus 1,200. Tafa's plus 1,400. I don't think Tafa has split decision equity, but I certainly think Porter does. And if you're going to bet those and you're going to bet a point deduction, let's take it all the way. Let's bet the draw. FanDuel will have it at 66-1, I'm sure. And with the draw, there's definitely a path where Tafa could win the first round 10-8 and then gas. I honest to God think a draw is super live here if Tafa comes out and he's explosive. So I refuse to break down this fight anymore. Have fun. Liam did it enough for really all of Parker's fights, like the rest of his career. We don't use his name on the MMA Engine anymore. Like after the Badeau fight, we refuse to speak his name. It's a banned word. So I'm going to bet Yam Bags. I'm going to take a poke on Porker, split decision, and I'm going to take a poke on the draw. for like the smallest amount, like whatever's under my couch is what I'm betting on this. And that's that.
I love it. Yeah, I'm gonna be very quick with this one because I don't have the strongest take. Tafa's the younger fighter, 8 years younger. Both these guys have been crushing UFC level cans when they win. Porter can be the minute winner here, in my opinion. And Vendera beat Tafa. That's the huge red flag for me. It's worrisome. Tafa has big power. Porter has lost all his fights by finish when he loses. So to me, it's either Porter decision or Tafa KO. I'm not touching this fight. I don't want to have the heartache. Gordo, take us away on this one.
I'm not touching it either. And, you know, Parker Porker, whatever you want to call him, the unnamed guy. I get that people want to show him love, but I can't get the comparisons to Jared Vandera. Jared Vandera is bad, but he does one thing very well, and that's put out volume constantly. A thing that Porter's not going to do in this spot. Something that you can't rely on Porter to do. So if you think Porter's going to go out there and implement the same game plan as Jared Vandera, I don't think so. What do I got to say? My favorite saying, gun to my head. I'm picking Justin Tafa because he's a big boy. No, I do think he has more of a chance in the line and tails. I think he's going to a good ability of like stopping Porter's aggression, and I think in doing so, he's got the power to put him away. Not betting on this fight, but you got to look at this from a perspective of how you see this fight going down. I don't see Porter having a lot of success in the long distance striking range. Porter's going to walk forward, get hit a lot, which he always does, and in doing so, he could definitely go down. I don't know. Maybe Tafa just sits on him and suffocates him. Who knows? No idea. I don't want any financial involvement in this. Shout out to Liam for being followed by Porter, and maybe because he's followed, he might see this. So I take it back, Porter. All love to you, but not a fight I want too much involvement in.
I think we can keep it rolling. Next up, we have a very exciting matchup: the return of Jack Della Maddalena going up against Randy Brown. And Lou, you're going to be kicking us off with this one. What do you think? What do you have?
I feel like this is a trap, but I'm going to fall right into it. I'm going to take Jack Della by KO. There's a couple of things I don't love about Randy Brown. He keeps his hands a little low for my liking. He also seems to have mental lapses in every fight. I mean, Chaos Williams, I realize the Chaos Williams wins seems like impressive in hindsight, but honestly, Chaos Williams is kind of living off like a meme KO for the last few years. Like, I don't think he's very technical. Yes, he has power, but he even hit Brown a few times in that fight. And like, Brown didn't wilt. He didn't get him like 100% clean, but Williams offered really no technical challenge for him. And honestly, you know, I know it's not Brown's fault with who he's been fighting in the UFC, but this isn't like an absolutely stellar list. I mean, Trinaldo is 90 years old. Gooden's no longer with the company, although I think that's a solid win. Alex Oliveira is another like mistake-laden guy. Worley Alves is a gas bag. Barberena has been 50 for the last 20 years somehow. Like, I don't know how the hell Barberena is still like 34. Like, that's wild. But I think with Della, he's going to be the stronger guy. His boxing, I could rave about his boxing all I want, but I'll let you guys do it. He's very accurate. I think all it's going to take is one Randy Brown lapse in judgment or putting his hands down for a second too long. That is all Della Maddalena is going to need. I think this guy's a future champion. I love everything I see from him. He's also just fun to root for. He just has like the intangible of like, you want to root for this guy. Like, he's almost like a throwback boxing champion in the 50s. Like, just the way his arms look, the way like he throws uppercuts. Like, he's kind of old timey, and I'm here for it. So I'm going to play Maddalena KO. But he certainly has decision equity here. Like, he's not KO reliant to win this fight. I'll just get that out.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter have the take with Randy Brown being the side here, using his grappling and whatnot. I tend to disagree, but I'm not saying that I'm going to be taking Maddalena in any sort. I think it's going to be a fun fight to watch. Maddalena is going to be at a 4-inch height disadvantage and a 5-inch reach disadvantage, which is not something that I usually like. But Jack is a phenomenal boxer. As Lou mentioned, he does remind me of like the old school boxers with his stance, and he's super accurate, serious power. Randy's really good at using his range, and he can keep people at bay. but he does have those lapses in judgment. He does have those points where it's like you're questioning his decision making, you're questioning his defense. Against Chaos Williams, he managed to stay out of danger, and he did eat a couple of shots, but reacted well. He didn't seem like he was wilting, or he didn't seem like he was falling over at any point. I like Madalena to KO Brown here. Will likely be a fight I won't bet. Jack's a big favorite for a reason, in my opinion. Gordo.
Okay. Before I do so, DFS Whisperer asks if I play this fight on DraftKings. He thinks I'm going to tell him my strategy. Where he's in the Iron Man too. He's pulling an Evan right now.
He was asking about the Porter fight.
I know he is. He's pulling an Evan. He's pulling. I don't know, man. I got to stop giving away this information. I know. In all seriousness, it's a very volatile matchup. It's a heavyweight matchup, but you're not going to get the right amount of takedown upside or control time upside. You're going to have to rely on significant strikes and maybe knockdowns and finish potential, which I don't want to do too often with someone like Porter. And would I play Tafa above people in his range? Probably not. So although you should play a heavyweight fight, I'm going to be a little bit under-owned to that one compared to the rest of the field. Okay, this one right here, Jack Della Maddalena, Rude Boy Brown. I tried to fade Maddalena once. I bet him Eve, and that was sad. So I don't think I want to do that again. I do think this is a fight that it should be Maddalena's fight to lose. He's going to have a huge striking advantage. I see a lot of people saying, "Oh, the vet experience of Rude Boy Brown, the takedowns of Rude Boy Brown." Brown's got a 33% takedown accuracy. He's not going to be a guy to blow everybody out of the water with his takedowns. Sure, he's a decent sub game, but we've seen nothing but toughness and resiliency from Maddalena. The other side of things, Maddalena's going to be quicker to the punch, have more power, in my opinion, and I think he's going to have more volume to win minutes down the stretch, not only have finished potential. Not one I want to bet because it also feels like, who are they trying to win here? They're trying to get a hometown win for the guy in Maddalena. They're trying to set him up. They found a guy who is higher up in the division but has been knocked out before. It looks like they're trying to get Maddalena a KO win. I don't know, man. I don't know. I have to agree with that. I think Maddalena has good DraftKings upside. I can't say anything wrong about him here. I think it's his fight to lose, but one day I'll fade Maddalena successfully.
Liam, will we be making this 4 for 4?
You know, if you asked with a gun to my head for a gut level lean, I would definitely say Jack Della Maddalena. But do I understand why people are interested in Randy Brown at the number? I must say I do. When you look at Jack, I wouldn't say that he fights perfect. I wouldn't say that he fights very clean even. He's just a really effective fighter, right? And that's, at the end of the day, you want somebody who's effective. He comes forward, puts somebody under a ton of pressure, ton of duress. He's in their face. He's throwing heavy all the time. He puts you in a position where it feels like kill or be killed. Like, if I don't do something right now to get this guy off me, he's going to hurt me and I won't be able to stand up to it. Pete Rodriguez really tried to swing with him and like landed good shots, but he was getting torched by so many shots coming back that he never had a chance. Like, he was like putting his hands up, like thinking about, all right, the next combination I should do, and he's just getting Pez dispensered as he's trying to come up with what's next. So he fills in the gaps with volume, which is a great asset. The problem is he's going to be in range to be hit. Randy Brown's a huge individual. He can hit him when Jack's in range to hit. He's in range to be hit in this fight for sure. Randy's not a punk. He doesn't hit like softly. He hits very hard as well. He's not the same prolific knockout artist, but he can throw with intent and keep guys off of him. He's hurt guys. He's messed guys up. He doesn't always have the greatest finishing instincts, which is a little frustrating. But then you look at, where is Jack making mistakes? And I made a tweet about Jack the other day, which I was admiring the boxing combinations, the power, all the intangibles. But the problem that I have when I look at his tape and I see the number is that this guy has been on the verge of being submitted twice in 4 UFC fights. That's a huge red flag, right? Ramazan Emeev had like a giant red mark from here to here. Still never got explained what that was. When he got touched to the body, my man was like, see ya, I'm out of here. Like, I think he had a serious medical condition or something going on. Like, weird appearance, weird fight, weird reactions, all of it. Okay, then you look at that fight. He almost got submitted. I mean, he was in a very, very deep Darce choke where he had to roll, grab the wrist, move, and then Emeev sold out for it. You could tell by the way he rolled. Like, he committed his entire body weight. He squeezed with everything he had. He stood up. He had nothing left. That's why he got finished instantly. You go back, Ange Lusa, Yo, guys, who's Angelusa lighting up on the ground, right? Is he setting the world on fire at local jiu-jitsu tournaments? He's a guy. He's just a guy at welterweight. He had him in an arm triangle for a minute and a half. Like, that was maybe the only success he had in the fight, but it's like, you can't just put your head in chokes fight after fight after fight and expect it's never going to be a problem. This is a guy who possesses one of the only one-arm rear naked chokes in UFC history. That's not a common submission. It requires skill. It requires some craft, and it requires attributes. He's got extremely long arms. I just think that there's some reasons to be concerned on the Jack Della side with some of the decision-making. Outside of that, the guy's fun. I mean, he's nails. He's fun as hell. Everybody likes him. I like him. I tried to fade him with Angelusa at plus 130, and I was like, oh, that was a mistake. It should have been a sprinkle on the sub bet and move on. That's what I would do here too. I'm not anxious to go fade Jack Della Maddalena, but when I see 13-1 on Randy Brown to win the fight by submission, and that's his best chance in my opinion, I'm like, okay. If you're gonna force my hand, if you're gonna beg me, I mean, I have to put a little sprinkle on that. So
yeah, I tend to think the same. If it were to go to the ground, I do think Randy Brown could be trouble for Maddalena there, because he does have some decent grappling, but I just struggle to see how he would get him there with his takedown.
Even think of the Cowboy Oliveira fight. I don't think they ever went to the ground. I believe that's a standing rear naked choke finish.
It was.
If he hurts you, that would actually be his best path here, is to just get behind this guy and try and choke him. He's tall, so he doesn't even need to get on your back. He can just stand above you, create leverage and torque, and rip a guillotine or a rear naked choke. So that would be, I think, his best path. Keep it standing and just get a standing choke, but it's easier said than done, certainly. Jack is not going to quit easy either. He's another one of these gamers that you're going to have to choke him out. You're going to have to break his arm. You're going to have to knock him unconscious. Like, you're not going to make this guy quit with a little bit of adversity. I don't see that.
I like it. So next fight, we have the co-main event. We have Yair Rodriguez going up against Josh Emmett, and I believe it's my turn to break this down. And what better way? I have a total of 5 units on Yair Rodriguez in this fight. I think it's very clear to me how Josh Emmett looked against Calvin Kattar, someone who's known for his toughness. He's known for being able to get hit. He's also known for just being a straight boxer. He doesn't really go for too many takedowns, and his kicking game is not all that. But then when you look at a guy like Yair Rodriguez, he is someone who mixes in his strikes really well. His kicking game is phenomenal. He has the cardio to hold up, and his defense, you know what? Yeah, he got tagged up by Max Holloway, but I don't see him being able to get tagged up by Josh Emmett here. I know Josh Emmett, all it takes for him to win here is just one solid right hand, but Yair has shown durability throughout his UFC career. And the one thing that Josh seemed to struggle with against Calvin was the speed. Calvin was piecing him up and he's moving, piece him up and move. And when it comes to a fighter like Yair, he possesses that speed. And a lot of people think that Josh Emmett might find success with the takedowns here. And I do tend to agree. He might be able to find the takedown, but as we saw against Brian Ortega, the get-up game from Yair Rodriguez is pretty elite. I don't expect him to find too much success in holding Yair down for too long. And on the feet, I think it's a night and day difference. Obviously, the power metrics have to go to Josh Emmett. But when you're talking about volume, when you're talking about effective striking and mixing up the strikes, I have to give it to Yair here. So I had to take the 5-unit slam on him. Probably my first 5-unit bet tracked on Bet MMA Tips. Gordo, what do you think about this fight?
I like it. I like the stance you're taking, and I have to agree with a lot of the thoughts you're putting down here. Is just Josh Emmett isn't a guy who's going to go out there and change his style for this fight. And unfortunately, the style he possesses now isn't one that I see winning at a very high clip, because Josh Emmett's not always the best minute winner, but he is a extremely powerful individual. And against a guy in Yair Rodriguez who has shown decent durability, I don't see that same path to victory for Emmett. Of course, it's always live. He's got insane power. But when you're giving me a 25-minute kickboxing bout and a guy who's only going to box here, I'm going to take the kickboxer over the boxer a lot of the time. I also think that there's more volume, better footwork, better just adjusting to the strikes as well from Yair Rodriguez. And if Emmett can't get his roll going, he tends to be more stagnant. He tends to just rely on that power, and I don't think that power is going to get him too far. So I'm with you on the Yair Rodriguez side. I have not bet anything yet, let alone 5 units, so good for you there. But this is, in my opinion, Yair Rodriguez fight to lose, because I can't see Josh Emmett making the right adjustments in this fight to win at a high clip. If Emmett's going to go out there and become a wrestle boxer, maybe, but I don't see him doing that. So give me Yair. I think he wins this fight.
Yeah, another thing I forgot to mention and bring up is that the 5-round experience. Emmett's only been there once, and he did look like he was wilting a little bit towards that 4th and 5th round. In the 5th, it was a little bit more visible. So got to keep that in mind. Liam, what do you think about this matchup?
Great matchup. From a trends perspective, these are two of the most fascinating guys in the UFC. I talked about this week, Josh Emmett, by far, it's not even close in terms of fighters that have 3 or more fights in the organization. He has the lowest favorite win percentage in his fights. So, like, whoever's favored, they get it wrong. They get it wrong more often than not on the Josh Emmett fights than anybody else in the UFC. But what does Yanni the Greek always talk about? Regression, right? Same thing with Josh Emmett's, his performance as an underdog is exceptional. It's phenomenal, right? It's over 100% ROI. If you've been betting on Josh Emmett, you've been making money hand over fist. More often than not, he's been undervalued in the market. Are they making the same mistake again? Are they putting themselves out there to be God again? It's possible. But now you're starting to see them adjust with the action that's been coming in on Yair Rodriguez. I think that this is a compelling fight because both guys have power, because both guys can finish, because both guys are lethal. But when you look at their recent performances, Josh Emmett hasn't really found that finishing touch. He's been able to hurt some guys. He hasn't really been able to put them away. He's been able to hit guys really hard, hasn't even been able to hurt them as much. When you're talking about Calvin Kattar, he got a couple good shots through, but I never felt like he was on the verge of putting him away. Now, granted, in that fight, I predicted Calvin Kattar by split decision. I bet Josh Emmett, right? So I had a good feeling about how that one was going to go. It was going to come down to the margins. It was going to be a close decision. I do not feel that way here. I think somebody's getting finished in this fight. I wouldn't be surprised if it went either way in some regards, because Josh Emmett is one of the biggest hitters. He doesn't have to win a minute of this fight. If he connects with a huge shot, potentially he could put down Yair. Yair's got a big torso as well. Josh Emmett rips shots to the body. He could potentially hit him with a liver shot that puts him down. But outside of that, Yair Rodriguez is tough as shit. He turned Max Holloway into a wrestler. This guy can really strike on the feet. He's got the dynamic kicking game. He's got the dynamic jumping knees. He's got the dynamic punching power as well. Length. He's dangerous in every position. And I think his submission game also underrated. Talked about that before the Brian Ortega fight, by the way. Talked about it after the Brian Ortega fight. Think he got no credit. Think that should have probably gone down as a sub on his record. If you attempt a submission and somebody gets injured, I mean, what are we doing here? Are we playing badminton? Are we having fun? Like, no, we're trying to hurt people. It's a fight. I put you in a submission. You hurt your arm. I submitted you. Like, I don't really know another way to put that. But either way, I just thought that it was a little bit baffling, the reaction to that fight, because I thought the 4 minutes prior, Yair was absolutely beating his ass. When they were at distance, it was not a competitive fight in my view. So for all those things considered, I feel like Yair is younger, sharper, extremely dangerous, undefeated as a closing line favorite. All of that being said, 57% ROI. So it's hard to get a good ROI on a favorite. Islam Makhachev, one of the most productive favorites in the UFC. It's like 22.8% or something. 12-1, 12 fights, 22% ROI. Yair Rodriguez, 6-fight sample, 6-0. Undefeated as a closing line favorite. And I will just mention 3 of those times he's won inside the distance when he was a closing line favorite. So I think that Yair Rodriguez, dangerous fighter, not the right guy to sign across the dotted line from right now. I thought he gave it to Max Holloway as a plus 750 underdog. Thought that line looked ridiculous in hindsight. And I think he's going to give it to Josh Emmett.
Lou, what do you think about this matchup?
Man, Liam, dude, that was serious fucking heat, man. That was some serious. I can't follow that. I will add the following. Yair has never been knocked down in the UFC. I know he's been finished, the Edgar fight. It's an amazing statistic that he has never been knocked down, especially since Emmett is like the career knockdown leader at that weight class. So I find that to be interesting. If you want to take the shot on Emmett, I think it has to be KO. It's fascinating in this fight to me because it's 2 moment winners going against each other. Like typically when I look at these kind of fights, like especially with Emmett, You look at guys like when he fought Burgos, it's like Burgos is a minute winner because of the volume, and it's only when he gets tagged. But I look at some of these fights and like, we're talking about like how Emmett faded against Cater. The third round of some of these fights, like the Burgos fight, he's on one knee and he looked like the fresher fighter. His volume was really good. So I feel like he's not just dangerous for 1 or 2 rounds. The guy is pretty lethal. He's got 15-minute cardio. 25-minute cardio is different. We know Yair has it. I think Yair is going to be the minute winner in this fight. Maybe I'm like crazy to think that because he throws flashier offense. He throws from different angles. Emmett's not going for takedowns here. We're not seeing D1 Emmett. I know it's in his back pocket, but he's got to conserve his cardio. In 25 minutes trying to get takedowns against Yair. It would be interesting if he tried to throw it into the first round just to at least get Yair thinking it's coming. But I think this is just a stand-up affair. I think Yair's going to have some flashy offense. I do not want to play a time prop here. I think Yair could win by finish. I think he could, but Emmett's pretty tough. And I think Yair could easily win a decision, just 5 rounds of him chopping away. But I lean Yair, but I will say if you do want to play the Emmett side, his KO prop is like over plus 400. It's a great way to get to him if you want. Or if you do want to like the Cody Safdie progressive parlays and you want to, and like Yair's the end of it, it's a good way to hedge off it to guarantee some money there, I think, because I really don't think Emmett has decision equity here. So play as Yair, may hedge the other way with an Emmett KO prop. But when Wiz is hitting my DMs all week, like telling me that he just bet like $18 million on Yair or whatever, my ears perk up. So sometimes you got to just trust your friends, man. Sometimes you just got to trust your friends to be like, all right.
We're doing the thing. Gordo, lead us off with the main event. We have Alexander Volkanovski going up against Islam Makhachev.
One of like my most anticipated bouts, right? Just because you have these two guys pound for pound. When have we ever seen this before? This is an insane bout. And I came into it with so much excitement, and I'm left with just nothing much that I have to say about it. It's pretty simple. Makhachev is a beast, and he is going to take down Alexander Volkanovski. And in my opinion, it is Makhachev's fight to lose because he is going to have the size advantage. He is going to have a superior ground advantage. And as much as Makhachev should win this fight, I'm cheering for Volkanovski. And this is coming from a Holloway fan. I'm cheering for Volkanovski just because I think that would lead to a very interesting matchup, or that would lead to a lot of you just surpass all these impossible feats, right? Being the guy to, like Volkanovski, be a double champ of that weight division. So it's hard for me to look past anything other than Makhachev winning this fight by ground domination. And that sucks because I see Volkanovski at 6.7K on DraftKings, and I'm just like, man, I want to play it. But I'm stuck here with wanting to play Makhachev inside the distance. What I think I might do instead, though, is take the under, because I think that Volkanovski's path to victory is probably going to be a lead to flash knockout on Makhachev. The same way Makhachev's been fit. Like, Makhachev's only lost, he got flash KO'd, right? So I think that the longer this stays striking, the more this favors Volkanovski, of course, but I don't think he's be winning minutes long enough to win the fight. I think if Volkanovski wants to win, it's inside the distance. So maybe the under. Maybe I'm just going to sit back and watch and hope for a good bout. But this is one that I don't have anything else to say other than it should be Makhachev's fight to lose.
Love the breakdown. Liam.
Yeah, for me, I love Volk. I'm a huge Volk fan. I've bet him a ton of times. I've done very well betting his fights. Last time I tried to fade him was Brian Ortega, and he got to all the positions I thought he would. Couldn't finish. So more power to him. Big blessings. I've learned my lesson. I bet some fight doesn't go the distance, and some Volk ITD against the Zombie. Made a handsome amount of coin there. Bet him against Max Holloway in the third fight as well on the money line and inside the distance. Couldn't believe that we didn't get that inside the distance across the finish line. Max is too tough for his own good. That was a crazy fight. But all things considered, Volk is an incredible fighter. But part of what makes him so special is that he can mix up his skills, right? He can take people down when that makes them uncomfortable. He could take people down and get on top of them and punish them if they just got off some ground and pound on him, right? He could always give it back to somebody. And I don't think he could give anything back to Islam in the wrestling. I don't think he's getting on top of Islam. I don't think he's taking him down. So that means he's going to be getting up or underneath or trying to keep it at distance. And in all those cases, I think it's going to be a really tough ask. A lot of the guys he's fought, I don't think are as willing to come forward and pursue him because they know that he can level change. He's a low, center of gravity guy. He can easily duck into a double leg. Islam welcomes any kind of grappling exchange. So he's going to push forward. I think he's going to try and draw Volkanovski on at various points. I think he's going to walk him down at various points. I just don't think anything bodes well for Volk unless he's able to deaden the leg. Like, he's got to just try and keep this guy on one foot because otherwise I think he's going to get taken down, and I saw him get taken down by much lesser grapplers. If you look at his early career, guys, Volk was talking about maybe going on to 35 when he came to the UFC, right? He's not a big fellow. He's like one of the smallest guys at featherweight. So the way he's been able to do this is being extremely dynamic, being the toughest guy in the division, being an insane game competitor. What do you think? Islam Makhachev's not here to win? You don't go 12-1 in the UFC by accident or by happenstance. You don't submit Charles Oliveira and Thiago Moises by accident. It's because you're elite. It's because you're extremely talented on the ground. I think that Islam is surprisingly, I'm going to say this, still undervalued in this fight. Not on the money line per se. I think that probably accurately reflects his chance to win, within a certain margin. But I think that in terms of the ITD being 50% here, it's like, well, then why is it minus 175 to not go the distance? It's like they're kind of saying, at least as I read this fight, the most likely outcome is Islam's going to submit him. And I think that is the most likely outcome. I think that Brian Ortega was this close to doing it. And I say this always with humility, right? I say this with the fact that Brian Ortega, if me and him rolled today, I wouldn't have a second of success. He would absolutely beat me pillar to post. He'd submit me 50 times in a roll. Like, all of that's true. But I think in the heat of battle, that was not an optimal guillotine. He had his knees way up by his elbows. He had his elbows like half like this. There was no real torque on it. He couldn't readjust his grip because if he readjusted his grip, Volk would have got out. When he tried to readjust his grip, Volk got out. So it was like he put Volk into a lot of pressure, but that wasn't a perfect guillotine. If it was, Volk would have been asleep. You understand? So it's like, for me, this is the thing that people might have missed is like Makhachev is extremely precise, but he also has better top control than anybody else in the division. So when he gets on top of people, more often than not, they're stuck. They're flat. They're neutralized. You see guys like Drew Dober that are extremely tough, known for their chin, their tenacity, their willingness to fight, their gameness. He literally squeezed him so hard that he quit. It's like, that's not normal stuff. It's a degree of control that you can exercise over somebody that's extreme. And I think that Volk is used to being the tougher, meaner guy that wants it badder. And I don't know that he's going to have that advantage on Saturday night. I think they both want it just as bad. So for me, this is a really tough stylistic matchup. You're moving up a weight class. You're the older fighter. You're at a huge size disadvantage and a stylistic disadvantage. Yeah, all the numbers are actually kind of appropriate to me, if not a little bit, disrespectful of who Islam is, because you're the best at your weight. Your skills translate to any weight, for sure. He can be competitive with anybody. But when you move it out of the weight class, he's not really going to be that much bigger. He could be a 135er, and he's fighting a guy who could be a 170 in like the next year and a half. So for me, that's the big problem. I like Islam Makhachev. I think he gets it done inside the distance.
Phenomenal breakdown. Lou, take us away.
I got a couple of ways to play this. I agree with everything that you guys have said about this fight, about how it should play out. If I do think there'll be a feeling out period early on. I mean, it's a title fight. Makhachev at least has to mind his P's and Q's a little bit on the feet. Although I think one thing that hasn't been brought up yet is his striking is like crazy underrated. Like, the guy does have very good technical striking, just because you don't see it on display a lot. He certainly looks very comfortable on the feet. I mean, he had no respect for Oliveira on the feet, none, and he just like mowed right through him. So I do think it's going to take a little bit for it to get going. I think a safer way to play this for me, Makhachev and over 1.5 is on DraftKings. It's minus 175. I do think this thing goes at least 2-3 rounds here. I do think Makhachev will eventually get the sub, but I don't think it's going to be early. And I think early on in this fight, you may see a lot more position over submission, just kind of grinding out Volkanovski, testing him on the ground. Volkanovski's so tough. I mean, look, you know, he gets the squeeze, but Volkanovski, albeit against guys that do not have the grappling chops of Makhachev, he's pretty good at staying out of trouble, except for the, you know, Ortega fight, obviously. But yeah, he has been taken down a lot. It's concerning, but I do think Makhachev will kind of wear on him a little bit. There's another bet I want to make here that's a flyer prop. But we had 3 title fights last year. When did all of them end? Ended in round 5. Fight to end in round 5, plus 1,400 odds. Why not? I mean, if the fight's not over, either Volk's going to be death-gassed and Islam's just going to get a takedown easy and have 5 minutes to work with, or Volk knows he has to win by KO, because Volk's not winning the majority of the minutes here, in my opinion. Could Volk just like unload the tank and go for a KO in round 5? We saw Leon Edwards do it. We saw Pereira do it. We've seen it. I mean, we've seen it 3 times last year it happened. And shit, Teixeira got a takedown in the 5th against Hill. Like, he made it interesting. So I think at plus 1,400, it's kind of a fun bet. You know, like, obviously, like, this is not like the Vegas Dave type of play, but like small poke on fight to end in round 5. You know, I'm going to take the shot on it as one of my ridiculous props.
I love it. And just to highlight what you guys mentioned, because I feel similarly. I like the Makhachev side. I like him inside distance. It pains me to say that I think my guy Volk is gonna lose. He's my favorite fighter. Been following him ever since he had his first fight in the UFC. You've seen him live against Chad Mendes. Phenomenal fighter, just undersized in this matchup, and I think he has the grappling liability when it comes up to. I mean, even at 145 against Ortega, he showed that on the ground he could get dominated. He could get those holes that can be exploited. And Makhachev is not someone that you want to have holes in the grappling against, because obviously we know him for the fighter that takes you down and either mauls you around or hunts the sub. So I have to lean the Makhachev inside the distance here. Will I play it? Probably not. I think the main event is for enjoyment on my end, at least. But gentlemen, we have come to the end of the stream. First of all, I want to thank all of you for being here, for helping me out with this video, and for giving the people some good content, some good value and entertainment. Gordo, let the people know where they could find you and what you have going on.
I'd like to just take this platform to make a little bit of a rant and a complaint to the UFC. They just announced that the April 15 card with Max Holloway will be held in Kansas City, Missouri, 1 week before I moved there for 3 years for school. Like 1 week. They couldn't have waited 1 week, and I would have gone see Max Holloway live, man. Horrible timing.
And a couple of days before Kansas City might lose.
Oh, Super Bowl. That's happening too. Where's my ref jersey? Yeah.
Who's Liam's? Can we get Liam's pick? Because I know Gordo's and Wiz's. Can we? If Liam picks Kansas City, we're once again deadlocked here.
How about them Chiefs, boys?
2-2, man.
All right.
We were deadlocked.
Like
we were 3-3 last night on the panel too. We were deadlocked as who was going to win.
That's the fun of it, right?
The way it should be.
That means you got a good game. If we're deadlocked, if the panel's deadlocked, you know it's a good game then. So,
speaking of that, though, make sure everybody go check out the video also on this channel. I was only there for a few minutes, but that was a lot of fun talking about the Super Bowl. Hope everybody enjoys the card this weekend. In terms of my content, UFC 284 DraftKings and betting breakdown now live on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. Feel free to check that out anytime. Give us a subscribe there. Show some love. Other than that, you can find me on Twitter at GamblesGordo. It's right up there. Isn't that cool? Right. And I hope everybody has a great weekend. Enjoy the fights, enjoy the Super Bowl, and let's make some money, guys. Thanks for having me on, Wiz.
Thank you for being on. Liam, let the people know where they could find you and where they could see your great work.
Absolutely, brother. Appreciate it. Guys, it's been a blast. It's always great when the 4 horsemen are riding together once again. So you can find me everywhere at Liam Picks Fights. You can find all my written notes, detailed market information, all my picks, plays, everything goes first in the Lab VIP. So all that information's on my social media. You can find it there. God bless you all. Enjoy the fights. Until next time. Let's do it again.
Thank you for being on, Liam. Lou.
Boys, always a pleasure reuniting the Horsemen. Wiz, nice seeing you again. And Gordo, nice seeing you again for the second time in like 10 minutes. MMA Engine channel, that's where myself, DFS by the Numbers, Uncle Weezy, and Monk do a lot of our content. I will be on Brady's show on Saturday, retaining my lead in his best bet competition. This Saturday, you can find me on DraftKings, climbing the ladder in Gordo's Ironman competition. I'm taking all the belts. I'm doing 2 prop shows in the next 24 hours because I don't know how to schedule. One is with my guy Shark, and one is a first-time collaboration between myself and James Blissett, who you might know better as Lucrative MMA. I'm very excited to break down some props with him. And good luck with the bets on the fights. Good luck with your Super Bowl props. Jalen Hurts first quarter touchdown pass plus 215 is amazing, and I am just not looking to my right now at these people.
Oh, okay. It's getting really serious now. Oh, Gordo has like a bunch of hats in his hands.
It's like sunglass.
I don't have glasses.
That's fucking awesome.
Damn.
But guys, it's been really fun. Oh, I mean, the grapes are something. If you guys haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. We'll be doing this thing a lot more often, I'm sure, and we'll be cycling channels next up, probably on the MMA Engine. Who knows? If you haven't already, please subscribe to the gentlemen and follow them on their Twitters and their social medias because they all put out great work and awesome entertainment. So without further ado, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see y'all next time.